supportive employment with DBHR HCA. So thank you for joining us today for the Job Developers Call. Today we have with us Joni Dulce with Rutgers, and we're going to be focusing on support planning, working with families, and other natural supports in terms of supportive employment.
Great. Thank you, Darren. During this month's call, we're going to, as Darren mentioned, talk about the role of family members and other natural supports in the supported employment services, and we're going to talk specifically about different strategies to engage family members and other natural supports, talk about the role of family and natural supports in career services, and then our always present objective to review this month's challenges, successes, what obstacles you might be encountering. So I think we're going to get into that first to hear from the group kind of right off the bat. What are some successes over the last month or two or a couple of months? What are some challenges that you might be experiencing that Darren and I can, and others here on the call can kind of walk through and further discuss to help provide some support? So you can use the chat. We have a small group. You can unmute your mic, whatever is your preference. But what are some successes that you'd like to share with the group? And just to reorient everyone to the Job Developers Call, this is a monthly call where we focus primarily on job development issues and challenges and successes, but also, it is a monthly call. So we also touch on other areas of employment support. So today isn't necessarily job development related, but certainly applicable to your role in supported employment. But let's talk about some challenges and successes. And they don't necessarily have to be with job development, but maybe within your provision of employment services. What are some things that are going well? Maybe some things that you could use some support around. You can use the chat or unmute, whatever works. Give it a minute or two. Okay, I see some chat. Hi, Megan. Nice to meet you. Introducing yourself. You're Megan Regis from the new Workforce Innovation and Alignment Manager for the Healthcare Authority. Unfortunately, okay, no worries if you have to drop off the call. Happy to have you here. We will send out the presentation and recordings, so no worries about that. Anyone else like to talk about successes or challenges? Let's see. Kristen, positive notes. It's always nice to hear some positive notes right off the bat. I've been doing FCS services since November of 21. And for the first time on your caseload, you have more than half in retention and a good group of people who are really advocating for themselves and putting forth an effort to do better and be better. Excellent. What are some examples of what you've seen in terms of what do you think might be contributing to the person's retention or having over half of the individuals in kind of that retention stage? And then also maybe what's contributing to people who are beginning to advocate for themselves and working towards their employment goals?
So I think honestly, at the end of the day, it's actually come down to me. I've learned more. I have tried harder to learn a lot more aspects of my job and figuring out through trial and error what works and what doesn't work. And, I stay on top of my clients about 90% of the time. Not all of them respond to me, but that happens. But a lot of them, they appreciate what I do. And because I have learned so much more, I always take advantage of any training opportunities that you have for this, because the more you know, the better you will be at your job.
Yes.
And I really think that is just because I've become better at my job. My clients haven't changed. They're still the same type of clients, same type of backgrounds, experiences, gaps in employment. It really does come down to the employment specialist, really. and your experience level on how to handle it properly and things like that. So
I agree. And I think you are mirroring what you just wrote, putting in that effort to do better and be better, right?
yeah, exactly.
Putting in the time to learn.
How can I
new
expect them
skills.
to do better if I don't try to personally involve or personally develop my own self? So
And I'm sure your supervisors, I'm sure the individuals you're working with appreciate you putting yourself out there, learning new skills, identifying challenges and seeking out support to address those challenges. Like you said, maybe the folks who you're working with haven't necessarily changed, but your approach to that has changed. That's a wonderful success story. Thank you for sharing that. Danielle writes, it seems that employers are overall more open and inclusive than in past years. And so that's a positive trend. So let's talk about that a little bit. What are you seeing in terms of employers' inclusivity and overall openness in recent times?
So I don't do job development directly myself, but I manage a team of 13 people who all do job development. And I hear a lot, in the last 2 years, maybe 2.5 years and I see too, where clients get interviews right away. They'll do the traditional post or, submit their application online, and then they're getting callbacks from employers rather than 1,000 years ago when I was a job developer, it seemed like we would post the application online and then we would go in and we would advocate and, really do that, relationship building piece to open folks' mind and get our clients in there. And now it seems we don't really need to do that, which is awesome. Employers are really open to accepting different abilities and different skills and open to having job coaches, which is really great to see. So just a little bit less front work, which is fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would also imagine that the years that you put into and how you're managing the team to build those relationships, continue to nurture those employer contacts that you have, may be helping in this in what you're seeing. It may be that you have developed the relationships and employers might be more open, or there might be other reasons, right? I mean, now employers that I've seen are putting more effort into looking at their employees' mental health. They're putting more emphasis on wellness in the workplace, and that could be trickling into maybe employers recognizing that there are gaps and having more empathy or understanding, that the work gaps happen in, maybe in light of COVID, seeing that maybe their family members or others in their lives have experienced work gaps, and that doesn't necessarily equate to the person's skill level.
Yeah, absolutely.
And for whatever reason, it's wonderful that you're seeing that. Are others experiencing similar experiences with employers? Or Brittany, you too seeing? Oh, great, very great. And then as job developers and employment specialists, you may want to be thinking about how to work within that, how to kind of continue that positive upswing that you're seeing, whether that's a key time now to begin developing those relationships or networking with employment industries and other business type groups like chambers of commerce or other business groups in your area to develop those relationships. Any challenges that people are experiencing over the last couple months, with either job development or even with employment supports that you're providing? We'll give a little bit of time for people to write in the chat or unmute your mics.
This is Darren. One thing I hear from a lot of providers is just staff churn. So I'm always curious to see how organizations and programs are able to manage that. So feel free to unmute or even add that, to the chat, because I think that's a major obstacle in providing the great customer service and individualized supports that you already shared this morning.
So staff shortages, staffing issues, absolutely can be a challenge, significant challenge.
You know, I would say we've been pretty lucky in that we haven't had significant staffing challenges. But one challenge that we do see is staffing challenges with other groups that we work with, like residential providers is a huge one, you know, that we run into. And then that sometimes leads to like transportation challenges. You know, somebody will get a job, but then they can't get there. So that's something that we're always trying to work through and plan ahead for.
Kristen, I've had troubles with going out into the community. I'm just uncomfortable doing it. I know it's part of my job and it's because of my own personal issues, LOL, but I still do it and slowly improve. I get more positive responses from employers. The negative, just hate feeling so intrusive on their day. Can others relate to that? Kind of going out there, maybe doing something that wasn't necessarily what you went to school for. You know, we're mental health providers and not many of us, myself included, I didn't learn this skill in college or in my training. So there is a level of discomfort. Do others have similar feelings around that? And there's been research, publications on just that is one area of employment services that many job coaches, employment specialists have the most conflict and concern about out there meeting with employers.
When I was managing a program, one thing I also saw is kind of the attitude of other staff, because they did a lot of their work in the facility and we were always going out. So there's a little bit of that culture change, like, well, what are you guys doing out there? And, you know, coming back and just sharing like you guys are today, some of those experiences and employer connections and success stories that I kind of have built. But I was always pushing staff out in the community to match with, you know, IPS, but other programs, unless you're in crisis services, you're probably not out in the community as much as an employment specialist.
Yeah, I agree, Darren. I've seen similar situations where maybe working with ACT teams and the voc specialist is primarily out there meeting with employers out in the community. Difficult for other team members to kind of see that in the same light as the more clinical work that people were doing. Brittany, it's my absolute least favorite part of job development. Yep, I think that's what we hear a lot. Kristen, Danielle's echoing that. I hear this a lot from my time, and my guidance is to flip the thought. You have clients that are going to be great employees to a business, and the employer would be lucky to have them as an employee, and you're doing the business a favor by showing up and advocating for your amazing clients. Yep. And you're there providing that support, providing that linkage, and then identifying the team aspect of it. Absolutely. And Roy, did you want
I'm
to
not
say
100%
something?
on that.
Yes. Can you
I think
elaborate?
it did.
Roy, are you wanting to chat, or are you unmuted?
That's what's in it. Oh, is
All right, so why don't we move on? But Darren, next month for April, we are directly addressing, introducing ourselves to employers, meeting with employers, how to best prepare for introducing your employment services to employers. So just as kind of a sneak peek of what's coming. So our next call will focus primarily on those interactions with employers. Dawn, Darren, and I are trying to really create these monthly calls that best match what people are looking for. And we've done some kind of surveying and discussions with people over the past year, and working with families was something that came up, but certainly the getting out there, introducing yourselves to employers is something that comes up quite a bit. So we are going to transition. Thank you everyone for contributing to talking about your successes and challenges. It sounds like there's a lot of success happening and a lot of good work, and those challenges continue to remain. And hopefully we can continue to address some of those, particularly, as I mentioned, next call, we'll talk about engaging with employers. But for now, let's focus on looking at natural supports and the topic at hand. What are natural supports? You can use the chat or unmute your mic. We have a nice kind of smallish group, so we can have a discussion. How would you define what natural supports are when you're thinking about natural supports in the career services that you're providing?
I always looked at this as very broad, anything that was a positive influence on the person I'm working with. And that could include bus drivers or wherever they got coffee. Sometimes even me, when I was going back in the day before COVID, you had that little bit of time with a barista or
Yes.
somebody for the influence. It could even be, a security person or a receptionist at your organization.
Yes, kind of those people, things, or strategies that are natural to the environment. It could be if the person, is carpooling with a coworker for transportation, that's a natural support. A coworker and the supported employee might, switch shifts in order to allow for, a flexible schedule, whatever those natural supports might be. It might be a family or a friend that can provide support, maybe, encouragement or tangible supports, transportation, or like Darren said, even that kind of emotional support of just seeing someone every day that that smiles at you, the bus driver, the, barista, whatever that might be. And then it could even be things, right? Like a calendar that someone might use for scheduling, or something natural in their environment that they use, that's sort of not agency related or professional support, but those things, people that are natural to the environment. What are the benefits of connecting with natural supports? What are some of the benefits of you connecting with individuals' natural supports? Of course, this is all within the knowing that the person is giving you that permission and wants you to connect with a natural support. You've already talked to the job seeker and they're interested in wanting you to have that connection. So with that being said, what are the benefits of connecting with natural supports? So connecting with family, connecting with other natural supports in the person's life, those unpaid supports.
I think this is something that we all sort of do naturally, when we start a new job, is we find those people that we can rely on that can, guide us on who to talk to and, how to fill out different forms and what the company culture is and, all of these things. And so to me, it's really just just helping our clients find those people. We all need people, and it's just a matter of helping them find those people at their new job that they can ask questions to, that can help guide them, keep an eye out for them, just like we would in our jobs. We make alliances and we find our people, and it helps us be successful.
Love it. Absolutely, Danielle. So, if something happens immediately on the job and the person has developed a support on the job with a coworker or a supervisor, that can be addressed right there in the moment. It doesn't have to wait for you or someone else to respond, to the person. The person can get that support immediately. the person developing the natural supports are expanding their network. So, the more natural supports in the person's life, maybe the broader the network of possible job leads. The person knows that there are people in their lives, just like you mentioned, Danielle, who are there to support them, to provide those kind of concrete supports, but also those emotional supports and kind of just being there.
Sometimes I found it's also like safety, that you can model those interactions with maybe
Mhm.
somebody in HR or a supervisor, somebody. So if somebody's having a hard time, they feel safe that they can check in with somebody, make it through their shift, not just leave the work site, or, empower them to call an employment specialist or a therapist or a peer counselor or something like that.
Any other benefits to using or connecting with natural supports? I'll give another 30 seconds or so if you wanted to write in the chat.
I would say maybe a sense of hope that what the path that they've chosen, their career goals, that someone is there to give them that sense of hope that they can do it. And also what their goal is, either can be possible and positive, and that they made the right decision, because sometimes they can second guess themselves.
Yeah, so having people in their lives kind of recognizing the successes that the person has, and seeing that person as another supporter, another person providing hope and optimism. Absolutely. And then it looks like we have something here in the chat from Leanne. Natural supports may offer additional insight regarding jobs that may work well for the person. They are also able to support the client with responding to employers and learning more about possible job connections. The moment versus waiting for scheduled, in the moment versus waiting for scheduled meetings. Yep. So kind of in that moment, utilizing that natural support person. They also allow for emotional support when things are stressful, if the client gets anxious. Yeah. So think about the natural supports in your life. Think about all of the coworkers and other people in your life, family, friends, partners who provide those natural supports. And it's not always those, paid folks in our lives, right? It's not always the doctors and other people, but oftentimes we receive those supports naturally. Thank you, Mandaya. So just some questions to consider. About what percentage of job seekers that you're working with are interested in including family and other natural supports in their career planning?
I would say not a lot of people, because sometimes the family can actually be a hinder to their career success. So some people don't want to involve their family at all, and some people who just a few, I would say just a few. But I'm not
Okay.
sure of the percentage.
Small percentage. How about others? What percentage roughly of job seekers are interested in including, Brooke, not a lot in your experience? Maybe 5%, Brittany? And let's see, we have maybe less than 5%, Kristen said. So let's talk about why might a job seeker want to include family members or other natural supports? What are some reasons why someone might want to include their family members or other natural, and family members can be parents, spouses, adult siblings, anyone within their, other close friends that the person identifies as family members. So, we don't necessarily just need to include the core family, but kind of thinking about those other people who are very close to the person. Why might a job seeker want to include family and other natural supports?
So I would say one, it could be that that's their guardian. And another thing could be that they need that support from the individual, from their family member with decision making.
So maybe some support around decision making. What might be some other reasons? Additional cheerleading and more ideas about what kinds of jobs might be a good fit. Yep, Brooke, that's another person kind of cheering them on, and also someone who might know some things about the person that could be helpful in career planning, and knowing what the person's interests are, what their skills and strengths might be, what types of possible supports could be beneficial based on kind of what the family knows of the person, or the natural support knows of the person, and how they function at home and in other areas of their life, and maybe some transferable skills, and kind of know some other details about the person. Leanne, in my experience, about 10% are interested. Many of them feel like their natural supports don't understand the goals and actually discourage them from pursuing employment. For those that do include family, they often desire to have someone to use as a sounding board for ideas and concerns. Usually younger clients have better relationships with family members. So that kind of gets to the next question of,
I was just emailing you.
Go ahead. Yes, Jamie. Jamie, did you want to say something? No. Go ahead. Jamie, if you wanted to contribute, just please unmute.
No, I wasn't. I'm sorry. I was talking to one of the employees, you guys.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. Thanks. And why not? Why might not someone want to include family members or other supports in their career planning? I think Mandaya brought it up. Others in the chat talked about maybe some discouragement that the person might feel from family or others.
Sometimes it's that fear of disclosure. I remember, working with people to, access services through Department of Vocational Rehab. It's just like, why is this other entity, or why are these other people in my personal business? It's just like, well, we're trying to provide, an advocacy team and coach and additional supports and resources to do that. So sometimes it takes education, but sometimes people don't want other people, being involved, or, that fear, like they're not going to be supportive of my goal that I came up with for employment.
So fears of just having people involved with maybe thinking that the person's going to be involved with every aspect of treatment, when it might just be, related to employment or related to one aspect of employment planning. And also that fear that the person may not be encouraging, may actually be discouraging to the person. Brooke wrote lack of natural supports in general. I think people may have limited natural supports, particularly if they've been in the behavioral health system for a while. They may not have natural supports if they haven't worked or aren't engaged in many other activities, and we can help people develop those natural supports. Any other reasons why people may not be interested? We talked about discouragement, fears of disclosure, and kind of having my business out there to everyone, unsure if the person would be on their side, and a cheerleader.
Yeah, and some natural support and like family members do put a lot of pressure on the individual. It's like, I think that would fall under discouragement, not seeing that they can keep the job. Or I worked with an individual where her aunt outlined everything that all the benefits she was going to lose if she continues working. So the
Okay.
individual got scared and quit.
Yes, yeah.
Urgent.
So not having that support is certainly one reason why someone might not do. So it's important for us as employment specialists to be aware of some of the reasons why someone may or may not want to, and have discussions with job seekers about what their interests are, and maybe helping them to look at some of the advantages and possible disadvantages. Kristen, they tell me mostly it's that they're adults and can make their own decisions. I don't work with many DDA clients. I've had a small amount since I began working here. It's more just FCS, and they just don't want family involved and not given permissions to involve them. So I thought we would do an activity, a brief breakout room activity, looking at these areas, these kind of stages of employment support. So kind of the getting to know someone stage, the engagement stage, selecting a career direction, or kind of developing the career profile, employment goal planning, gaining employment, and the job search and job development, maintaining employment, and career advancement. So I was thinking we could get in small groups and identify 2 to 3 strategies to engage job seekers, to engage family members or other natural supports in each of these stages. Of course, with the person's permission and interest, how might you assist the person in engaging a family member during the engagement stage? So, how can you assist someone you're working with to engage or get useful information that the family or others might have in this engagement stage? So maybe there are certain questions that you can ask, or the person can be reflecting on, what are some tasks around the house that you think I'm good at, or what have you seen over the years in terms of my skills and strengths? When we talk about selecting a career direction and developing the goal, what are some interest and potential support needs that maybe the family or natural support person is able to share with you and the job seeker that could be helpful when the person is developing a goal or completing the career profile, getting a job? What are some strategies that a natural support family member could assist in the getting the job? Could they put a word in with their employer, or whatever that might be? But what are some ways that they can support the person in that stage? And then maintaining employment. So what are ways that natural supports, what are some strategies they can assist the job seeker or the supported employee in maintaining employment? We said one earlier, transportation might be one. Career advancement, what are some strategies that we can engage family members around, or the individual can engage their family members around, strategies to help with career advancement? That could be maybe, identifying someone in a career that the person is interested in and maybe scheduling an informational interview or some other type of discussion with that person. So I thought it would be helpful if we could, in our breakout rooms, really kind of begin to drill down some of these strategies. So I'm going to open up the rooms and I'll cut and paste these categories into the room. So I'm going to open those rooms now. I'll try to pop in, but maybe we have about 3 to 5 minutes to discuss and come up with a list. If you can identify one person as kind of the facilitator, and then someone taking notes, and then another person can report back. That would be helpful. So let me create the rooms. Okay, so we'll create 3 rooms. Okay, so please come back after you join and talk, come back together as a larger group. Support when you're going, when Darren and Dawn send these back out, you'll have that as a resource. So when we think about how to assess support needs, let me see, we have something. Kristen wrote, navigating family and support, having higher expectations for client. Oh, okay, let me read these. Kristen writes, navigating family and support, having higher expectations for clients than than what might be feasible at the time. So that's certainly sometimes a challenge. Leanne, we discussed encouraging clients to have their supports come to intake meetings so that they can help the client remember what is talked about. Yep. And keep them on the same page with ourselves and with the client. Perfect. Thank you for and of course, always get the person's permission and the person's consent to do that. Here are some areas, 8 areas to look for when you're helping someone assess their support needs. So kind of asking some questions of job seekers, ask job seekers types of questions to better understand if they might need support in employment planning, benefits planning, transportation, emotional support, maybe try to ask some questions around support needs in that area, maybe having someone to talk to at the end of a shift or whatever the support need might be, and try to think of how you can incorporate family and natural supports when you're helping someone assess those support needs. How can natural supports and family members provide some of this? Maintaining friendships, learning the job seeking skills, so interviewing, filling out applications, job development, legal issues. There might be gaps in employment related to job development, learning the job, so maybe enlisting coworkers or other natural supports, maybe with learning some of the jobs, the tasks, wellness management, maybe natural supports could be enlisted to help with those. Darren says, I've also seen programs utilizing clubhouses and community cafes for additional supports. Yep. So getting a sense, asking individuals and assessing what their support needs are can help you as the employment specialist to help connect them with natural supports or maybe other paid supports. Asking questions around who constitutes your employment support network and what supports do they provide. Talking about family, supported employment staff, really getting to know what types of supports others in the person's life are providing or can potentially provide. I just added this support plan, kind of a template that we've used in the Institute that identifies, and you can certainly modify this to meet your needs, or maybe you have something, but it's a plan kind of taking those support needs that you've already helped the person assess and identifying across the top here. You identify what the support need is. What is it? A work culture support? Can this support need be met by maybe selecting a job that's a good match? What's the culture of the work environment? We're going to focus, right in today's session, we're talking about natural supports. Are there existing supports in place that the job seeker or employee can use? What is already in place on the job that can address this support need? So I've identified here at the bottom, transportation. The person doesn't drive. So natural support could be maybe carpooling with a coworker for maybe a fee. Maybe they could, pay the coworker a little something, maybe using public transportation. And then the support from the employment specialist, maybe the employment specialist could also provide some training, skills training around learning the bus. But if you look at this final column, the plan, what, how, when, and who kind of identifies, if we look at, the carpool natural support by the end of the month, you can identify a specific date if possible. The job seeker will inquire of and maybe research possible carpooling options at the job. Maybe by exploring companies' websites, maybe they have something on the website that talks about that, maybe talking with potential coworkers or supervisors. For public transportation, another natural support, maybe the job seeker can ride the bus with the person for maybe the first week to help identify the stops, any other areas that might need some training around with taking the bus. So, this is just kind of a plan that incorporates different support needs. We just talked specifically today about the natural supports, and the supports from employment specialists, but you can also see here, are there accommodation supports? So I know in one of our upcoming calls, we'll be addressing reasonable accommodations, but this is just a way for you to kind of look to see how you can begin assessing supports, how you can begin engaging others, natural supports in the person's life with the different stages of employment. So we talked about the role of natural supports in someone's kind of career journey, how to engage different supports, maybe some of the pros and cons that individuals might have regarding connecting with family or natural supports, talked about what some of those positives would be, having someone there to encourage and be a cheerleader, and also a person who knows the job seeker and might be able to shed some light onto the person's skills and strengths and interests, and also some support needs based on their knowledge of the person. Some of the, disadvantages we kind of talked about, people may feel that the family or natural support might not be as encouraging as they want, or might overtly provide information. I think Mandaya brought this up, that could dissuade someone from going to work. For example, showing information about benefits and kind of, writing those out to show all that the person might be losing. So there are some advantages, potential disadvantages. Ultimately, it's up to the job seeker and the individual working how they want to engage and connect with their natural supports, and different ways they would like you as the employment specialist to support them in that. Any questions?
I just want to say thank you, Joni, for that tracker table that you had, because I think that fits in well with the IPS job support tool too, and it adds a few things. So thanks for sharing that.
And then some resources. The IPS Center has lots of resources. If you do a general search in their library on working with families or natural support planning, they have tons of tools and other resources that would be helpful. And then always give me an email if you have any additional questions that come up. And then certainly Darren and Dawn are available if you have, potential topic ideas for future calls. But I thank you everyone. And Darren, I think you have some wrapping up to do.
Yeah, thank you all for joining us today. This has been presented by DBHR with part of the HCA. We will send out, a thank you follow-up email with the recording and with the PowerPoint. So thank you for joining today and working in a small breakout sessions today. And just a shout out to all the new folks today who are just starting into this position, as well as those who have been in this position for a while. I think it's great to have this small knit community to support each other across the state and get those different perspectives and share the experiences and challenges that you all face. So thank you today. Definitely, we hope to see you again in April, where we'll focus more on some of the tasks of job development and employer relationship.
Lizette asked if we'll be having a second meeting with this topic. Yes, we can certainly have a follow-up meeting. But we'll also, Lizette, send out the recording if you missed most of the meeting today. We send that out along with the presentation. So no worries about that. But thank you, everyone, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks. Have a good week.
You too, Darren. Bye.
Bye-bye.